Hey everybody, Ninja Mama here. I want to discuss a topic that has really been fascinating me lately, and it's certainly playing out in my own life with my narcissist. And it's something that has actually kind of given me a little bit of comfort and helped me to feel better during my healing process. And that topic is the narcissist usually ends up overplaying their hand. Now, this can be something that's it's a spectrum, just like anything else in narcissism. And it can be on a small scale, like they might be the kind of narcissist that likes getting laughs and likes getting attention that way, and maybe they're making people laugh and they're trying to take it to the next level, and then they end up making a joke at someone else's expense. And then the group of people that they're with ends up taking the side of the person that they're trying to make the butt of the joke. And then it doesn't go over so big, and they end up making themselves look like a big asshole in front of their friends and family. That would be on a small scale, overplaying their hand. Or they can end up doing something on a much larger scale and actually end up destroying their own lives. I found this blog post. This is from femalebullies.blogspot.com, and it's titled Malignant Narcissists Overplay Their Hand. She says, I'm convinced that malignant narcissists often mess up and expose themselves because they overplay their hand. In a workplace, they may drive 2 or 3 people out of a job. But when they do it for the 4th time, their aberrant behavior catches up with them, and upper management finally decides that having them on staff is getting too expensive. The bully might have gotten away with serial abuse 3 times in a row. She likely would have retained the respect of her higher-ups if she had just stopped at that, but apparently she couldn't. Or a queen bee in a group of moms may target one of the other mothers. The rest of the women in the group act as enablers, watching it unfold until the victim bows out of their social circle. However, when the bully tries the same thing again and then again, she may wear out her welcome. Narcissists lack awareness of boundaries, so they don't know when to call it quits. They push the envelope so far, it slides off the table. If they abuse once, they'll abuse again. It's the repeated incidents that seem to lead to their undoing. I've watched this play out in my own experience with a female narcissist whom I met at church. In a previous post, I talked about not allowing a morally disordered person to know your future plans, as they may try to foil them. They could try to create trouble for you at the next locale, especially if they aren't yet focused on their next target. Anyway, a woman who created havoc in one religious setting tried it again elsewhere, but she made a tactical blunder. Typically, a narc will only target one person at a time. However, this individual chose to go after me and another woman whom was very well known and liked. Being a newcomer, I was an easy mark, but everyone knew the other woman was not capable of all the ridiculous things that she was being accused of. So if you've been targeted by a narcissist, all you have to do is wait. Eventually she'll slip up. This is so true. I've certainly seen this play out in my own life, in my own experience. The main idea that sticks out to me in this blog post is just that. Just sit back and be patient. Let them do all the work. They're gonna end up messing up. You gotta think of it as the addiction that it is. Just like with a drug addict, of course, if you've watched my videos, you know that I have one of those types of narcs. So I got the beautiful bonus of the addiction to attention and the addiction to actual drugs. So they're usually the architect of their own destruction, because just like a chemical addiction, they're going to need more and more and more because they're constantly chasing that high, and they'll keep increasing the amount that they take, trying to get that first high that they got, which is what they're chasing. And then they get to a point sometimes where they actually end up taking enough to kill themselves. So and it can be this, you got to look at this the same way as that. They'll keep escalating their behavior, chasing after that same reaction they got off of that person who's the target, or the group of people who they're trying to get attention from, and they're going to increase the intensity of the behavior, trying to get that first laugh, or that first show of sympathy, or what have you, whatever it is that they're looking for. They're going to increase it to the point where they overstep somebody's boundaries, and then they get called out on their bad behavior. I heard that quote somewhere before, that the narcissist is usually the architect of his own destruction. I can't remember where that originated, but I do like that quote. It's very true. Unless maybe if they come across a more sadistic, more intelligent narcissist or a psychopath, well then that may be a situation where somebody else leads to their undoing. But then of course in that case they would get supply by playing the victim. But essentially when you're dealing with a narcissist, especially one that's escalating things, all you really need to do is sit back and watch them do their magic. Now, of course, if you're in a situation where you have a physically abusive narcissist, immediately get yourself out of that situation. And if you can't, then call the police immediately. I'm not saying that in that situation you should sit back and wait. I'm only talking about those narcissists that use mental games. But like in the blog post, the woman mentions the example at the church. The narcissist in that situation chose to smear a woman that had a wonderful reputation in that community. Clearly, that's not going to work. But they have that magical thinking thing going on. They think that they can get away with anything. I'm sure you've heard lots of examples of that in this community on different channels. They get sucked so far into their own delusional fantasies that they think they can pull off the most impossible feats. It's really sort of like listening to a little kid talk about how I'm Superman, or I'm Batman, and then they think that they can jump off the roof and fly or whatever. It's like dealing with a kid. They think they are superhuman. I think mine definitely has that in his personality, because he thought he was gonna, use like the most addictive drugs out there. I mean, all the drug addicts out there, the recovering drug addicts are out there saying that like these things will get you hooked so fast you won't even know what hit you. And it's so hard to stop using them. But no, he could. He thought he could control it. And I'm not even just talking about the drugs. I'm talking about things that he did, like with his behavior, how he would push people to their limits, pushing their buttons, trying to get reactions out of people. He really thinks he can get away with anything and not have any consequences. And that, of course, is the very foundation of a narcissist. They don't think they should have to take responsibility for their actions. He's still, to this day, he's never admitted that he was ever physically addicted to these drugs. And it's all, I think part of that is he's become so enmeshed, like the drugs have become so enmeshed with this false self that he has, this image that he projects. Because his shtick is he's the funny guy, he's the life of the party, he's the guy that makes everybody laugh with all of his funny jokes, and he cannot make this happen without some form of intoxication. And drugs is what he latched onto. So they've become enmeshed with his false self to such a degree that he cannot gain the supply that he needs without it. It's part of his persona thing that he's got going on, the macho tough guy too. Like, it's a way for him to show off in front of his friends, like real men can handle their drugs. And he somehow thinks he's above humanity and that he can take all these drugs and not become physically dependent on them because he's a tough guy, he's a real man. Getting addicted is only for wimps. So that's hurdle number one when you're dealing with a narcissistic drug addict. They are forever stuck in the denial stage. He's never going to admit that he's hooked on these drugs. Even though we have proof, like we have concrete proof, he's spending ungodly amounts of money on these drugs and he'll still deny that he's got a drug problem. So ultimately, I think if he doesn't OD or go to jail, he's going to just end up exhausting all of his financial resources and alienating people to the point where, that's what's going to lead to his own undoing. He just feels so entitled to such a blinding degree. He thinks he should just, be able to keep doing these drugs, and it pisses him off that society doesn't view this as acceptable behavior. He thinks I should just mind my own business and let him keep doing what he's doing and not protect my kids and do what's best for them. Like, I'm supposed to just keep allowing him to, drive all over the place with the kids in his car, and I know that he's doing these drugs. That's a narcissist. Mind-boggling. Thanks for listening.